When the voices of the past began to whisper, one woman dared to listen, and what she heard changed the heart of an entire village forever. The sun was gentle that morning, yet the wind carried a strange cry. It came from beneath the old baobab tree that stood at the heart of Willow Village. The elders said that when the ancestors whispered, even the leaves listened. Mara, a young mother of two, heard the cry first. She froze by the riverbank, her clay pot slipping from her hands and shattering against the stones. It was not the cry of a child, nor the sound of any bird she knew. It was soft, like a sigh, yet heavy, like sorrow carried by the wind. "Mara," called her husband, Daniel, from the path. "Why do you stand there like one who has seen a ghost?" She looked at him, trembling. "Did you not hear it? The cry beneath the baobab?" Daniel frowned. "Perhaps the wind. You know how it plays tricks at dawn." But Mara shook her head. "No, that was not the wind. It was calling a name, my name." That night she could not sleep. The cry echoed in her mind again and again, until it became a whisper, gentle, pleading. "Mara, listen." She rose from her mat and stepped outside. The moon hung low, and the baobab's shadow stretched like a long arm across the village. Her feet moved on their own. The whispers grew stronger. When she reached the tree, she saw something she had never seen before, a faint light pulsing at its roots, like the heartbeat of the earth. A voice spoke, old and calm. "Blood remembers. The living forget, but the earth does not." Mara fell to her knees. "Who are you?" she whispered. "We are those who came before you, the ones whose sweat built your path. You have forgotten the promise made beneath this tree." Her heart pounded. Promise? What promise? Before she could ask, the light dimmed. The whispers faded. Only the sound of the night remained. The next morning, Mara told Daniel what she had seen. He laughed softly. "You are tired. The children, the fields, it's wearing you down." But the laughter died when the eldest elder, Nana Grace, came running. Her face was pale, her wrapper undone. "The baobab weeps," she said. "The earth is crying blood." They ran to the village center. At the base of the tree, the soil was wet, not with water, but with thick red sap oozing from its roots. The elders gathered, murmuring prayers. Nana Grace looked at Mara. "Child, when the ancestors whisper your name, it means your family has been chosen. Something hidden must be brought to light." Mara's voice trembled. "Chosen for what?" "For truth," said the elder, "but truth always comes with a price." As the villagers whispered among themselves, Mara felt a chill crawl up her spine. The cry beneath the baobab was not just a warning, it was a beginning. That night, as the moon rose again, she heard the voice once more. "Mara, the blood of your house cries for peace." And for the first time, she understood. The ancestors were not whispering to her. They were calling through her. The days that followed were heavy with silence. The baobab no longer bled, but its bark had turned dark like burnt wood. Children no longer played near it. Even the birds avoided its branches. Mara could still hear the whispers in her dreams. Sometimes they were calm. Sometimes they cried. Each time, they said the same thing: remember the promise. One evening, she sat outside her hut, watching the sunset paint the sky in orange fire. Daniel joined her, his hands dusty from the farm. "You've hardly spoken all day," he said softly. "You're far away, Mara. Where have your thoughts gone?" "To the baobab," she said, "and to what the ancestors said. They spoke of a promise. Do you know anything about it?" Daniel looked away. His silence was an answer. "Daniel," she pressed, "what have you not told me? He sighed deeply. My father once told me a story, he began. Long before we were born, two brothers ruled this village together. They were strong, united, and loved by all. But greed entered one heart. One brother betrayed the other. Blood was spilled beneath that same tree. Mara's eyes widened. The baobab? Yes, he said quietly. And before the dying brother took his last breath, he cursed the land, saying that peace would never return until the bloodline that betrayed him restored the promise broken that day. The words hung in the air like smoke. Whose bloodline? Mara whispered. Daniel hesitated, then said, Mine. Mara stood, trembling. You mean the whispers? They call your family to make it right? He nodded slowly. But how? The truth of that day is buried with bones long gone. That night, Mara could not rest. As the moon rose, she heard the voice again. Deeper now, sadder. Go to the river when the cock first cries. The truth sleeps beneath the water. When dawn came, she followed the whisper. Mist curled above the river like breath from unseen mouths. She knelt by the water, and for a moment, all was still. Then, a reflection that was not her own stared back. It was an old man's face, scarred and sorrowful. His lips moved, though the water stayed calm. Child of my child's child, he said. The promise was life for life. One must give so that all may live in peace. Mara gasped. No, I cannot give what I do not have. But the river answered with ripples, and the voice grew softer. When blood forgets its wrong, the earth remembers it still. She ran back home, her heart pounding. Daniel met her at the doorway. What happened? She told him everything. He fell silent, his eyes wet with fear. If the ancestors demand a life, then I will go, he said. Mara gripped his hand. No, there must be another way. They wouldn't call only for death. They call for truth, for healing. At that moment, the ground beneath them trembled. Pots fell, children screamed, the goats scattered, the baobab groaned, a sound so deep it felt like the earth was crying again. From its hollow trunk came a burst of wind, carrying sand and whispers through the air. Every villager froze as a voice echoed, let the past be faced, or let the land fall to ruin. Then silence. Only the heartbeat of the land remained. Mara looked at Daniel. We must find the other bloodline, she said. The one that was betrayed. Only then can peace return, and in that moment, beneath a trembling sky, their journey began. A journey not of land, but of spirit. A journey to heal what was broken long ago. The next morning, the sky hung heavy with clouds. The wind carried no song, only silence. Even the drums that usually called the village to prayer were still. Mara woke before the others. The whispers had spoken again, softer this time, but clear. Seek the keeper, the one who remembers what the earth forgets. She didn't know what that meant, yet her heart knew she had to go. She packed a small calabash of water, tied her wrapper tight, and turned to Daniel. I have to find the keeper, she said. The ancestors will not rest until I do. Daniel hesitated. You will not go alone. Whatever waits for you, waits for me too. Together, they set out through the forest path that led beyond the farmlands, a path most villagers feared to take. It was said to lead to Echo Hill, where spirits whispered truths no one wanted to hear. As they walked, the air grew cooler. and the forest thickened. Birds went silent. Only the sound of their footsteps remained. After hours of walking, they saw an old hut sitting at the edge of a clearing. Smoke curled weakly from its roof. An old woman sat outside, grinding herbs in a clay bowl. Mara called softly, "Grandmother, are you the keeper?" The woman didn't look up. "Names are heavy, child. Those who carry them must be ready for their weight." Daniel stepped forward. "We were sent by the ancestors. We seek the truth that has been hidden." At that, the woman slowly raised her head. Her eyes were pale, clouded like fog, but Mara felt as though they saw everything. "The truth," the old woman said, "is buried in the hearts of the living, not the graves of the dead. But you are brave to come." She motioned for them to sit. From a small gourd, she poured water into the ground. Instantly, the soil shimmered, and shapes began to appear. Faces, faint but alive. Mara gasped. "Who are they?" "The forgotten," said the keeper, "those whose names were erased when the blood oath was broken. One of them cries for justice even now." One face rose higher from the ground, a young man with sorrowful eyes. The keeper's voice trembled. "This is Eli, the betrayed brother. His spirit has wandered for generations, seeking peace, but the curse binds him still." Mara's heart pounded. "Then what must we do?" The keeper looked at Daniel. "You must face what your fathers did. Only truth can wash away blood." Daniel lowered his head. "How can I face ghosts of deeds I never did?" "Because the blood remembers," said the keeper. "It flows through you as it flowed through them." She reached into her calabash and drew out a small, ancient pendant made of bone and red thread. "This was once his brother's. The moment it returns to its rightful hand, the curse will break. But beware. The spirit of greed still walks this land." As she handed it to Daniel, thunder cracked overhead. The ground trembled again, and the faces in the soil faded. The keeper's voice became a whisper. "Hurry, before darkness claims what little light remains." Mara and Daniel looked at each other, fear and hope locked in their eyes. They turned toward the forest, the pendant glowing faintly in Daniel's hand. And as they left, the keeper's final words followed them like wind through trees. "When the living remember, the dead can finally rest." The forest seemed alive that evening. Leaves whispered, branches moved though no wind blew. The path before Mara and Daniel twisted like a living serpent, guiding them deeper into places untouched by men. They had walked for hours since leaving the keeper's hut. The pendant around Daniel's neck glowed faintly, pulsing like a heartbeat. Every few steps, Mara thought she heard footsteps behind them, but when she turned, there was nothing. "Do you hear that?" she whispered. Daniel nodded. "We are not alone." Then came a low growl, soft at first, then closer. The bushes shook, and from the shadows stepped a tall man, clothed in dark ash, his eyes like dying embers. "Who are you?" Daniel demanded. The man smiled, but it was not a kind smile. "I am the one who keeps the curse alive." Mara froze. "The spirit of greed," she whispered. The man laughed softly. "Names change, but hunger does not. I fed on betrayal long before your ancestors knew truth. And I will not let peace steal my feast." The pendant on Daniel's chest flared brighter. The man flinched. Mara stepped forward. "We will not fear you. The truth has already begun to rise." The spirit sneered. "Then let it bury you with it." The ground cracked open beneath them. Roots shot out from the earth like angry snakes, wrapping around their legs. Mara screamed, as the world tilted and the forest spun into darkness. When she opened her eyes again, everything was silent. The trees stood frozen, the air thick like smoke. Daniel was gone. "Daniel!" she shouted, her voice echoing through the stillness. No answer, only whispers, hundreds of them, circling her like invisible hands. "Mara, the curse feeds on fear. Do not let it take you." It was the voice of the keeper, faint but clear in her mind. Mara steadied her breath and held her chest. "I will not be afraid," she whispered. "I will not." A warm light flickered ahead. She followed it and found Daniel lying near a shallow stream, the pendant glowing against his chest. His eyes opened slowly. "I saw them," he said weakly. "The brothers, the one who betrayed and the one who forgave. They were both crying." Mara knelt beside him. "Then the ancestors are showing us the path. We must go where their tears fell." Suddenly, the pendant lifted from Daniel's chest on its own, floating above the stream. The water shimmered, revealing a reflection of the old baobab. But in this vision, it was whole, green, tall, and alive as it once was before blood touched its roots. The whispers came again, stronger now. "Bring the pendant home. Only there can the promise be fulfilled." Then the light vanished, and the forest returned to its natural stillness. Daniel stood, his face pale but determined. "The spirit of greed will not stop us." Mara nodded. "Then we walk until the baobab welcomes us again." As they began their journey back, a shadow followed close behind, moving where the light could not reach. It whispered softly, almost lovingly, "No truth walks without a price." And somewhere deep within the trees, the spirit of greed smiled, waiting. The wind carried a strange song that morning. It hummed through the trees like a voice trying to speak. Mara and Daniel followed it, their steps heavy on the red earth. The air felt alive, trembling with whispers only their hearts could understand. Daniel stopped. "Do you hear that?" he asked. Mara nodded. "It's calling us." They reached a clearing they had never seen before, a circle of stones covered in ancient carvings. At its center lay a mound of soil shaped like a sleeping giant. The whispers grew louder. Then the ground trembled. The mound split open, releasing a gust of warm air that smelled of old rain and roots. A deep voice echoed from below. "The living forget too easily. Blood remembers." Mara fell to her knees, eyes wide with tears. "Who speaks?" The voice rumbled again, soft yet commanding. "I am the one your ancestors buried when they turned from truth." The guardian of the forgotten promise. Daniel clenched his fists. "We don't understand." "What promise?" The earth pulsed with light. A ghostly figure rose, a man draped in soil and gold dust, his face lined with wisdom and sorrow. "Your village once vowed to honor the earth and the spirits who protect it. But greed took root. The land was wounded, and I was bound beneath it." Mara's heart thudded. "How can we make it right?" The spirit's eyes glowed like fireflies in the dark. "You must return what was stolen. The river's heart, the sacred stone. Without it, the land dies, and the whispers fade forever." Daniel looked at Mara, confusion heavy on his face. "The sacred stone? My father told stories of it, but everyone thought it was a myth." The spirit's form flickered. "Myth is truth that has grown tired of being ignored." The wind howled, bending the trees. The voice deepened, wrapping around them. "Beware the shadow that walks with envy. He seeks the stone too, not to heal, but to control." Then silence. The light dimmed. The spirits sank back into the earth, leaving behind a faint golden glow. For a long time, Mara and Daniel stood still, hearts pounding. Mara whispered, "We've been chosen, Daniel. The ancestors are watching us." Daniel nodded, his eyes filled with a mix of fear and courage. "Then we can't fail them." They began their journey toward the old river. Every step felt heavy, as if the earth itself was testing their will. Birds flew overhead in restless circles. The forest seemed alive, watching, waiting. But as they crossed a narrow path lined with roots, Mara froze. In the distance, she saw movement, a tall, dark figure watching them from the trees. He didn't move. He didn't blink. The same shadow from their dreams. The spirit of envy had found them. The whispers grew frantic, like a chorus of warning voices in the wind. "Do not turn back. Do not lose faith." Mara gripped Daniel's arm. "Run." They ran through the forest, leaves slapping their faces, their breaths ragged. Behind them came footsteps, heavy, steady, inhuman. When they reached the riverbank, the whispers softened again. A warm breeze surrounded them, and a soft voice whispered in Mara's ear, "Only the pure of heart may see the way." She stepped forward, closed her eyes, and listened. The sound of water changed, deeper, older. Then she saw it. Under the river's shimmering surface, a faint light glowed like a heartbeat. "The river's heart," she whispered. Daniel looked at her, eyes wide with awe. "How do we get it?" But before she could answer, a shadow moved behind them. The voice of envy hissed through the air, "You cannot take what belongs to me." And the world turned dark. The river sang that night. Its waters glowed faintly under the moon, whispering secrets from long ago. Mara and Daniel stood by its edge, breathless and trembling, the air heavy with unseen power. Daniel held the pendant tightly. "It's here. I can feel it." Mara knelt by the bank, her fingers brushing the cool water. "The ancestors said only the pure of heart can find it," she murmured. She closed her eyes. The wind stirred her hair, carrying soft voices. "Listen, child of courage. The heart of the river beats for those who still believe." Then she saw it, beneath the water, glowing softly like a heartbeat, a stone wrapped in golden light. "The river's heart," she whispered. Daniel leaned closer, eyes wide. "It's beautiful." But before he could touch it, the water churned violently. Waves rose like hands, and a deep, rumbling voice filled the night. "You are not yet worthy." Mara stumbled back, eyes wide with fear. "Who speaks?" From the river rose a spirit of water, tall, graceful, formed of mist and moonlight, her eyes shining like pearls. Her voice echoed through the valley. "Many seek what they do not understand." The stone is not a prize. It is a promise. Mara fell to her knees. "We only wish to heal the land. The ancestors sent us." The water spirit's gaze softened. "Then prove it." The river split before them, forming a narrow path of light. Daniel helped Mara up, and together they stepped forward, their feet sinking into glowing sand. The world around them changed. The trees faded, the stars spun, and suddenly they stood in another time. Before them stretched a vibrant village, full of laughter and life. Children played under the baobab tree, drums echoed in the air, and elders spoke beneath a shrine covered in bright cloth. Mara whispered, "Is this the past?" The water spirit's voice answered, "This is what was lost." They watched as the village thrived, until men came, greedy and proud. They cut trees, polluted the river, and stole the sacred stone that kept the land alive. The earth cracked, the water darkened, and the laughter died. Daniel clenched his fists. They destroyed everything. The spirit nodded sadly, and from their greed was born the shadow, envy given form. It feeds on every broken promise. Mara's heart ached. She saw her ancestors crying as their world withered. Then a soft whisper touched her soul. Child, the stone answers only to those who love without desire. She turned to Daniel, tears in her eyes. We must return it, not keep it. Only then can peace return. Daniel nodded. Then let's finish what they began. But the river began to rage again. The shadow had followed them. Its voice slithered through the mist. You can't save them. The ancestors abandoned this land. The air darkened. The water spirit's glow flickered. The river walls shook violently. Mara stepped forward, shouting through the storm. The ancestors never leave those who listen. She reached into the water, her hand glowing with golden light. The stone lifted, shining brighter and brighter until the night turned to day. The shadow screamed, its form dissolving in the light. The water spirit smiled, her voice soft as a lullaby. The first promise is restored, but the journey is not over. The heart must return to the root. Mara looked at Daniel, panting and trembling. The baobab tree, she whispered. That's where it began. Daniel smiled faintly, his eyes full of faith. Then that's where we'll go. Behind them, the river flowed calmly again, its song peaceful and pure. The whispers of the ancestors filled the air like 1,000 gentle voices saying, Well done, children of courage, but beware, darkness always seeks another way. The morning sun rose red over the forest. The river's song had quieted, but the whispers had grown louder. They followed Mara and Daniel as they walked toward the baobab tree, soft, haunting voices that spoke of truth and sacrifice. The air felt heavy, almost alive. Every leaf rustled like a warning. Daniel carried the sacred stone wrapped in cloth, its golden glow dimming and brightening as if it had a heartbeat of its own. It feels restless, he said quietly. Mara nodded. It knows what's coming. As they walked deeper into the forest, the trees began to change. Bark darkened, roots twisted like sleeping serpents, and shadows stretched longer than the sun should allow. The whispers turned fearful. Beware the path of envy, for it hides behind what you desire most. Suddenly, the wind stopped. The forest fell silent, and from the shadows ahead, the dark figure appeared again, taller than before, his form trembling like smoke. The shadow. His voice was calm, deep, and cruel. You think you carry the ancestors' blessing? Number. You carry their shame. Mara's hand trembled. You are not of them. He smiled. I am what they left behind. Their greed, their jealousy, their fear. You call me evil, but I was born from your blood. Daniel stepped forward, anger flashing in his eyes. You don't belong here. The shadow's laughter rolled through the trees. Every light casts me, boy. You cannot destroy what is part of you. Then the ground split. The air thickened like smoke, and Daniel was thrown backward, the sacred stone slipping from his grasp. It rolled toward the shadow, glowing brighter as it moved. Mara screamed, No! But before she could reach it, the shadow picked up the stone. His hand burned, smoke rising from his palm. Yet he grinned, bearing the pain. Even purity can be corrupted, he hissed. The light in the forest dimmed. The earth began to shake. Mara fell to her knees, clutching the pendant around her neck. "Ancestors," she cried, "help us!" A wind swept through the clearing, fierce, cold, filled with voices. Ghostly shapes emerged from the trees, circling the shadow in glowing light. One voice boomed louder than the rest. "Darkness cannot steal what love protects." The spirits surrounded him, their light piercing through his form. He screamed, his body flickering and fading, but before he vanished completely, his whisper echoed through the air. "You will have to choose, Mara, to save the land or the one you love." And then he was gone. The forest went still again. Only the soft sound of the river far away broke the silence. Mara crawled toward Daniel, who was lying on the ground, weak but breathing. The stone rolled beside him, now dim and cracked. She cradled his head. "Daniel, stay with me, please." He smiled faintly. "I'm not leaving you. Not yet." The whispers returned, gentler this time. "The test has begun. Only love will lead the way." Mara looked toward the distant horizon, where the top of the ancient baobab rose against the sky. Its leaves glowed faintly gold, swaying in a breeze she could not feel. She wiped her tears, determination hardening her gaze. "We finish this today." Daniel nodded weakly. Together, hand in hand, they walked toward the sacred tree, unaware that the true test, the one that would break or bless their bloodline, was waiting beneath its roots. Night melted into dawn as Mara and Daniel reached the edge of the forest. Ahead of them flowed a wide river, calm on the surface, but beneath it, the current rumbled like a hidden beast. The keeper's voice echoed faintly in Daniel's memory. "To reach the baobab, you must cross the river of truth. Only the honest heart can survive its waters." Mara stared at the river. The water shimmered strangely, reflecting faces that were not their own, men and women with ancient eyes. "Are they watching us?" she whispered. Daniel nodded slowly. "They are waiting to see if we are worthy." He stepped into the river. Instantly, the water turned cold as ice. Every lie he had ever spoken rose in whispers around him. Voices mocked him. "You said you were not afraid. You lied. You said you forgave her. You didn't." Daniel fell to his knees, clutching his head. "Make it stop!" Mara ran to him, grabbing his shoulders. "Daniel, listen. The truth doesn't destroy. It cleanses. Speak your truth." He gasped for air, trembling. "I was angry at my father for leaving us. I blamed him for everything. But deep down, I only missed him." The river's roar softened. The cold eased. Then it was Mara's turn. She stepped into the water, and the river mirrored her face, then twisted into her mother's. "You wanted to run from your gift," the voice said softly. "You feared what the whispers would make you." Tears burned Mara's eyes. "Yes," she whispered. "I was afraid. I wanted a quiet life, not one filled with voices and visions. But now I know. They are not curses. They are blessings." The water around her glowed gold, washing over both of them, like dawn, breaking after a long night. When they reached the middle of the river, the surface parted, revealing a shining stone engraved with the symbols of the ancestors. Daniel picked it up, and the pendant responded, glowing brighter than ever before. A deep voice rolled across the sky. "The truth has been spoken. The hearts have been tested. The path shall now open." The river calmed instantly. Across the water, the baobab stood, enormous and ancient, its branches reaching like arms ready to embrace. But as they stepped onto the riverbank, the spirit of greed appeared once more, his form now cracked and flickering like a dying flame. "You cannot escape me," he hissed. "You carry me in your hearts." Mara faced him boldly. "No, you are not born in hearts. You are born in choices. And today, we choose truth," the pendant pulsed. The river shimmered with golden light. The spirit screamed as his shadow dissolved into dust, carried away by the wind. Silence followed, soft, sacred, complete. Daniel fell to his knees. "It's over," he whispered. Mara placed her hand on his shoulder. "No, it's just beginning." Above them, the wind shifted, and in it came the soft, loving whispers of the ancestors. They were no longer distant voices. They were family. The sun hung low when Mara and Daniel finally reached the sacred valley. At its heart stood the great baobab, enormous and ancient, its trunk wide enough to hold a house, its roots twisted deep into the red earth, pulsing faintly as if alive, as if the tree itself breathed. The air was thick with silence. No birds sang, no wind blew, even the whispers that had guided them were gone. Daniel touched the pendant around his neck. "It's quiet," he murmured. "Too quiet." Mara nodded. "They've brought us here to listen, not to speak." They approached slowly. As they drew closer, the bark of the tree shifted, revealing faint carvings, faces, symbols, and hands pressed into the wood, as though the ancestors themselves had become part of it. Suddenly, the pendant shone with blinding light. Mara shielded her eyes. "Daniel!" He fell to his knees, trembling. The voice of the ancestors thundered across the valley. "The blood of betrayal once stained our roots. The greed of man broke the bond between the living and the dead. Will you now restore what was lost?" Daniel's lips trembled. "Tell us how." The ground rumbled. A deep crack split the earth around the baobab. From the chasm rose the spirit of greed, now vast and monstrous. His form made of ash and smoke, his voice like thunder. "You think light can live without shadow?" he roared. "I was born when your ancestors betrayed each other. You cannot destroy me. I am part of you." Mara stepped forward, her voice calm but strong. "Then we will not destroy you. We will forgive you." The spirit paused, confused. "What?" Daniel joined her. "Forgiveness ends what hatred feeds." The pendant glowed brighter, and golden cracks spread across the spirit's smoky body. He screamed as the light pierced him. "You fools! Light cannot exist without shadow." Mara's voice rose over the wind. "Then let us live with our shadows, but never be ruled by them." The spirit exploded in a storm of dust. The air shimmered with gold and silver lights, thousands of tiny orbs rising into the sky. From the baobab came a long sigh, deep, ancient, and filled with peace. Its leaves turned green again, glowing faintly as the voices of the ancestors returned, soft and full of warmth. "You have restored the promise. The blood has been cleansed. The bond between the living and the dead shall endure." Daniel knelt, tears in his eyes. "It's over." Mara smiled through her tears. "No, it's healed." They stood hand in hand beneath the baobab as fireflies filled the air. The land breathed again. The whispers turned into songs. And for the first time in generations, peace returned to the valley. For 7 days and 7 nights, the valley was still. The great baobab glowed softly, its light breathing like a heartbeat through the land. Mara and Daniel stayed beneath its shade, listening to the whispers that had once been faint now clear as morning bells. They spoke not with fear, but with peace. "You have done well, children of the earth," the voices murmured. "But light must travel. The truth must live among the living." Daniel looked at Mara. "They want us to return." Mara nodded slowly. "To the village, to the people." They gathered what little they had and began their journey home. But as they walked, the path seemed different, brighter, alive. Every tree they passed bent gently. Every bird song sounded like blessing. Even the wind whispered their names. When they reached the edge of the village, people stood frozen in silence. They had been waiting, unsure if Mara and Daniel had survived. Then they saw the pendant, glowing faintly on Daniel's chest, and they fell to their knees. Old women wept. Children stared wide-eyed. Chief Aaron, the village elder, stepped forward. "You have returned from the land of the ancestors," he said softly. "Tell us, what did you see?" Mara's voice was calm. "We saw truth. We saw what happens when greed divides hearts, and how forgiveness heals what time cannot." The villagers listened, their eyes shining in the firelight. Daniel held up the pendant. "The ancestors do not ask for worship. They ask for unity, for honesty, for love." There was silence. Then the old chief nodded. "Then let this be our new way." That night, under the stars, the entire village gathered around the fire. Mara told the story, not as a myth, but as a truth reborn. The flames danced as she spoke of the brothers, the curse, and the whispers that became songs. Her voice carried far beyond the village, rising with the wind, carried to every ear that needed to hear. And as she finished, a gentle breeze swept through the crowd, soft and warm, filled with familiar murmurs. "We are with you." Always, the people looked up. The stars above shimmered brighter, forming shapes of faces smiling down. Daniel smiled at Mara. "The ancestors are proud," Mara whispered, her eyes full of tears. "No, Daniel, they are home." The village sang that night, not out of fear, but gratitude. The river flowed again. The trees bloomed again. And for the first time in generations, no one whispered to the ancestors out of need. They whispered out of love. The village rejoiced, but peace never comes without a test. For 3 nights after Mara and Daniel's return, the baobab's light began to flicker, weak, trembling, almost as if in pain. The elders whispered that the ancestors' message was not yet complete. One evening, as the moon climbed high and pale over the fields, Daniel woke to a strange sound, a whisper that was not warm, but cold, sharp like broken glass. He stepped outside his hut and froze. A dark figure stood beneath the baobab. "Mara," he called softly, but the voice that answered was not hers. "You have awakened what should have slept." The shadow moved, shifting like smoke, and Daniel felt his chest tighten. He could hear the ancestors' voices overlapping, light against dark, harmony against anger. Something ancient and bitter had been stirred. When Mara came out, she saw him trembling. "The whispers," he said, "they're not all kind." That night, they went to the elders. Elder Ruth, the oldest in the village, took the pendant and held it to the firelight. The glow flickered weakly, dimming with every breath. "The ancestors' guide," Ruth said. "But not all ancestors rest in peace. Some still hunger for what was lost." Mara's heart thudded. She remembered her dream. A dark fire burning in the forest, voices crying for forgiveness. She knew what they had to do. "We must go back," she said, "to where it began." They walked at dawn. the forest heavy with mist and silence. The air smelled of rain and old sorrow. The pendant grew heavier, as if dragging them towards something. Deep in the woods, they found an ancient mound covered with moss and stones. From beneath it came faint whispers, pleading, angry, desperate. Daniel knelt and pressed his hand to the ground. He saw visions, a forgotten battle, brothers turning against brothers, flames devouring fields, children crying into the night. The ancestors had not only blessed, they had sinned too. Mara's voice shook. They want forgiveness. The pendant cracked open like a seed. A soft, golden light spilled out, and from it rose faint, shimmering faces, old, weary, sorrowful. "We seek peace," one whispered. "Free us from the anger we left behind." Mara bowed her head. "Then be free." She placed the pendant on the mound, and Daniel lit a small flame beside it. The fire spread slowly, gentle, cleansing, wrapping the mound in gold. The shadows screamed, then faded into light. The whispers became a hum, not of pain, but of release. When it was done, the forest breathed again. The trees seemed lighter, the air warmer. The baobab in the distance glowed strong and steady once more. Mara and Daniel stood hand in hand. Tears glimmered in their eyes, not from fear, but from peace. They had not only heard the whispers, they had answered them. The morning after the cleansing, the village woke to a sky painted in gold. Birds sang louder than they had in months, and the baobab tree stood taller, its glow calm and strong, no longer trembling, no longer weeping. Mara and Daniel stood beneath it, side by side. The pendant, now cracked and silent, lay between them on the ground. Its light had done its work. "The whispers are gone," Daniel said quietly. Mara shook her head. Not gone. At peace. She could still feel something, not voices, but a warmth in the air, a quiet rhythm that matched her heartbeat. The ancestors no longer spoke through fear or pain. They spoke through peace and memory. Elder Ruth approached, leaning on her staff. "You have restored balance," she said. "The spirits rest because you listened, not just with your ears, but with your hearts." The villagers gathered around. Some brought gifts, baskets of grain, carved wooden figures, small tokens of thanks. Others came with tears in their eyes, touched by the calm that had returned to their homes. That evening, as the sun melted behind the hills, the drums began to play again. Children danced in circles, elders clapped to the rhythm, and the people sang songs of gratitude. But Mara's heart carried something deeper, a message she had learned through the journey. She turned to Daniel and said, "The whispers were never meant to frighten us. They were reminders that we are part of those who came before us and those who come after." Daniel smiled. "Then their story continues through us." They looked at the horizon where the sky met the earth, glowing in soft amber light. The wind moved gently through the trees, whispering like an old friend. That night, the baobab tree shimmered softly, not in warning, but in peace. Its roots dug deep into the land, and its branches reached toward the stars, carrying the memory of all who had walked before. At dawn, Mara knelt beneath it and planted a small seed beside its roots. "For tomorrow," she whispered. Daniel placed his hand on hers. "And for those yet to come." The seed glowed faintly, as if the ancestors themselves smiled upon it. Days turned into weeks, and the village thrived. Crops grew fuller, the river ran clearer, and laughter once again filled the air. Travelers came to hear the story of the whispers that turned to peace, of the family who listened, and of a people who remembered where they came from. Mara became a storyteller, sitting by the fire each night, telling children how the ancestors once spoke through wind and dream, and how their voices live in every heartbeat that loves the truth. And every time the wind passed through the village, it carried that same gentle sound, not of warning, but of blessing. Dear viewers, what lesson did you take away from this dramatic tale? We'd love to hear from your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed the story, give us a thumbs up, share it with your friends, and hit the subscriber button. Don't forget to turn on notifications so you never miss out on our latest updates. Thanks for watching and stay blessed.